me. You don't belong here until I bought the restaurant that night.
What? You bought this place?
The first sound is silence. Then the tick-tick of the restaurant clock cuts through it like a soft judge, close on a hand, coffee stains spreading slow as an accusation across the fingertips. The light is low, and the glass on the table catches it and turns ordinary things into hard stars. She is behind the counter, apron still tied good and neat, breath tight, palms damp. There is a small tremor in her shoulders you can almost call nervousness, but it is steadier than that. It's a habit learned from long days, from holding plates steady when the world wants to shake you. He comes in like weather, tailored coat, collar crisp, shoes that click a different language on the floor. A diamond watch winks in the light like a verdict. He is a man used to doors opening before he reaches them. Everyone makes a little room when he moves. His eyes are the kind of cold that asks for accounts to be settled. He looks at her and the air changes. He says the words as if reading a menu. You don't belong here. The sentence is not loud. It does not need to be. It slices the room anyway. Conversations go thin. Forks stop. A customer's fork slips from a hand and hits the plate with a small, shocked ring. The manager ducks his head as if to pull his uniform over the moment, but his words get stuck behind his teeth. People look, some look with the weight of sympathy, a few with the quick shame of those who fear witnessing something they cannot fix, and others with a lazy relief that someone else is being made smaller because it makes them feel taller for a breath. Her face freezes like water before it falls. There is rage there, hot, low, almost a living thing, but there is something else too, a sharp bending where pride has been knelt down and asked to apologize for its existence. She presses the back of her hand to the stain like she could press the insult away. The piano in the corner plays a few notes, soft and almost ashamed. The camera stays on her eyes, two simple, honest things that have seen enough to know what hunger looks like in a man's suit. In those eyes you can see a book of small lives, a mother who woke before sunrise, flour under her nails, a bakery window that smelled like sugar and perseverance, a child's small hands trying to shape something and failing and trying again. A flash, a kitchen at dawn, her mother's hands cradling dough, teaching patience like a prayer. Always finish what you start, the mother said then, like a commandment. The memory is not pretty, it is tender. It is the thin rope she still clings to. The crowd's sound narrows into a hum. Her heartbeat rises, loud enough that we feel it in our throats. The hum becomes a drum. The restaurant becomes a stage, and the stage seems to shrink to her shoulders, and the man's words settle like dust. You don't belong here. He repeats it, softer this time, as if to taste the meaning. The staff glances at each other. Some look away. The man expects a flinch, an apology, a smallness. That is what his kind trains people to do. It is the world that teaches certain faces to step back. But the camera catches the slight change, her jaw sets. Her breath counts to 3. No one in the room knows the number of nights she has worked twice as hard to be visible and half as paid. They do not know how she learned to carry full trays balanced on a single palm, how she learned to smile like sunlight even when her insides were a storm. She thinks of her mother's bakery again. The memory hardens into resolve. She does not step back. She straightens the apron. She picks up the rag not to wipe the stain that would be a plea, but to dry her hands so they can move steady. The manager opens his mouth to say something meek, to say sorry on behalf of the establishment, to offer the safe little phrase that sounds like repair. But the man's stare stops him. The CEO's posture is a straight line. He is certain he has graded the room. He is certain of his verdict. He does not see the small, private scaffolding of courage that lives inside the woman in the apron. He does not see the life ledger that lists every time she paid for someone else's mistake with her dignity. The silence grows heavy enough to sit on. Outside, the neon sign hums like a billboard of indifference. Inside, the music plays like a witness. The customers shift in their seats, some uncomfortable, some fascinated, some terminally bored. One of them, an old woman near the window, puts a hand to her mouth and looks away because looking would be admitting that she knows the truth, that power often smells like money and fear, and that fear can be cruel. The camera moves in again on the woman's hands. The stain is a bruise in fabric. It might be gone in a minute with soap and water, but the mark on a person's heart does not wash as easy. Her lashes are wet, not yet tears, but the rawness of the moment is enough to make every small thing matter more. The man folds his arms, a small smile like a knife. "This is not for people like you," he says, another kind of sentence carved from class and old maps. He thinks he is protecting something fragile, his idea of a world with lines drawn sharp and kept clean. But his words fall like pebbles into a pool with no visible ripple. Instead of retreat, her fingers curl into a silent fist and then open, like she is deciding between fire and forgiveness. You can feel the room leaning on that choice. It is not just about one insult. It is about 1,000 small commands the world has whispered at her since she learned to make bread. It is about who gets to occupy space and who is told to make themselves small. She remembers the first job she ever wanted, a ribbon in her hair, and the promise of saving up for a bus ticket that would take her somewhere else, somewhere bigger. She remembers children who loved her cinnamon rolls and called them magic even when they were just sugar and sweat. That memory is sharp, and it burns up the shame until what is left is heat. Her chest rises. She moves her shoulders the way you do when you are putting on armor that is not new but fits. Then she speaks. Her voice is not loud. It does not need to be. It is clean and steady like breaking dawn. She says, "I belong where I choose to be." It is not a shout, it is a truth. Heads turn, some faces soften. A man near the bar drops his glass and does not notice the noise because something in him is awake now, something small and honest that recognizes being human. The CEO blinks as if a gust of real weather hit his face. He was not ready for refusal that did not crumble. He was ready for a kneel. She refuses to kneel. The camera pulls back slowly, giving us the whole scene, plates half full, a newspaper folded on a lap, a child's finger sticky with cake at a corner table, the piano still playing like it is trying to stitch the air back together. The moment stretches out. The title card appears, "You don't belong here." It is not on his lips anymore. It is a question hanging above where we all sit. Who will answer it? Who will change the story? The music lingers on a minor chord. The light narrows. The woman stands at the center of the room like a single match waiting for something to catch. Below the surface, something has shifted. Humiliation has met a quiet refusal, and the two of them have sparked. The camera holds on her face then, no name given, because sometimes names are not the point. A face will do as a flag. Her breath is visible now. The restaurant noise comes back in pieces. Conversations try to reassemble themselves, but the shapes are forever different. The CEO straightens his watch and looks away, as if to find a door he can leave through and pretend no dent has been made in the universe. He does not see the reflection of his own surprise in the glass. The woman wipes the coffee stain from the counter with slow, clean strokes, as if she were cleaning more than coffee. Her hands do not shake. Her eyes are a long road. The last we see before the frame goes dark is that look. Hurt, yes, but also a light that looks like the first flame of something that will not be contained. Fade to black. The question stays with the room and with us. Who is brave enough to stop the man from making the rules, and who will teach the world that dignity is not an invitation to be granted, but a right that sits with every human being at every table? The next morning the story is already living in the mouths of people, whispered like a secret, whispers at every table. "Wo konsi thai?" someone asks. "Billionaire ni kaya bola?" asks another. The clock on the wall ticks with a new weight. The restaurant smells like coffee and tension. Small conversations fold into one long question. The manager walks with a new stiffness. His face has a line now that never used to be there. Customers split like a river. Some stand with the suit. Some stand with the apron. The divide is quiet, but it shapes everything. Tips get smaller. A regular who always sat near the window stops coming. The echo of "you don't belong here" travels from table to table like a tune nobody wants to learn. People say it inside their heads. The staff feel it on their skin. The hours become harder, because when a town decides a person is a problem, the work finds a way to make days longer. She hears the words. She hears the silence that follows them. She hears small cruel jokes. She hears the sighs that sound like agreement. She also hears one voice that surprises her, close and small. "Saab, hamara kaam khan do." She says it to the customers, to the boss, to the room, and it sounds like someone striking a match. There are other voices too, colder. "You should know your place," says an ally of the man in the suit. It falls like a ledger being closed on a life. The owner, a man who answers to the billionaire, calls a meeting. There is a long table, paper cups. The owner leans forward. He says, policy change, move her to the back, cut her hours. It is said like math, like a simple optimization problem. It is not math, it is a person. She stands in that meeting room like a single small figure and says, Main nahin rukungi. The silence that follows is heavy in a way that sounds like a verdict. The boss looks surprised, as if the word no has no place in that room. He expects her to fold. He expects to offer a small apology and a small pay and have the problem go away. But she holds the look. She is tired, she is afraid, she is frightened about rent and food in the future, but something inside is fiercer. The recording starts as a small thing. A customer takes out a phone. He pans the room. He lets the camera rest on her face. He captures the words. He posts. The clip spreads faster than the managers can call each other. On the screen, she becomes larger than the room. The internet crowns her with an instant crown. People call her a hero. They send words like flowers. They write support her and this is wrong and stand up. For a moment the world looks like it might lean her way. But the world is complicated. The flame of praise brings smoke. The billionaire's people do not like the heat. They do not like to have attention on the line they draw. They flex. A notice comes from the landlord, repair or leave. A health check is scheduled for the kitchen with a tone that says we found something. A complaint appears in the file that smells like someone wrote it with a pen dipped in power. Small things pile up into a mountain. Every day brings a new test. Her phone rings more than usual. It is her mother. Beta, safe rare, the voice says, soft and shaken. The voice carries flour dust and early mornings and worry. Her family watches the glowing screen and holds their breath. Her sister texts a single heart. Her father listens in silence, the line between them full of old rules about staying small. She answers politely, she breathes. But at night, when she closes her eyes, the world of her childhood returns, her mother's bakery, the warm oven, the safe small pride of making something people would call good. The memory is salt and sugar. It tastes like a promise. The viral fame is a mirror. It shows her in light. It shows her in pain. It also shows the harsh truth. A viral clip does not pay bills. 1,000 strangers on the internet sending hearts do not stop a landlord's signed paper. The reversal is sharper than she imagined. The crowd that cheered online now has a different face. Some of the cheering is hollow. Trolls come. A few people dig for dirt. The man in the suit's allies find emails, old pictures, a petty error from months ago, and they turn every small thing into proof of guilt. Someone leaks a rumor that she failed a health check years ago. Someone else posts a private message out of context. The online voice that lifted her starts to cut her down. She feels betrayed by strangers who never met her. She feels the bitter cost of attention that can be switched like a light. Inside the restaurant, the staff watch each other. They pretend to be immune, but they are not. The manager has a meeting with the owner and comes back with instructions dressed as advice. The instructions mean less work, less hours, less room to breathe. She watches him say it like he is trying to be kind. She watches her tips shrink and her shifts vanish. Her shifts get patched like a sweater with holes. She goes home with silence that sounds like a bill. She calls a lawyer on the advice of a friend. The phone call costs more than she has in her pocket. The lawyer asks for time. The landlord's notice has a due date. She eats rice and expects it to hold the shape of courage. The slow motion of her cleaning a table becomes a scene in her life. Her hands tremble, but her jaw is tight. The rag in her hand moves slow. Each motion is a heartbeat. People watch without looking away. Some look down, some stare. One regular returns and sits at the corner table. He looks at her and says nothing. He leaves money, but not enough to change anything. The stakes rise. It becomes clear this is not a simple snub. It is a test of the system. The system that says power is louder than truth. The system that uses small rules to control big lives. The system that will make one woman pay so the rest can feel safe. She sees the shape of it now. She sees how money folds over people like a sleeping blanket. She sees how public applause can become private peril. But in the hard places in her chest, another thing grows. It is stubbornness. It is not the pride that makes a person shout for no reason. It is a steady kind of stubbornness born from promises kept and hands that have made bread and cleaned tables and held children when their parents were gone. It is the kind of stubbornness that learns how to hold a line. She meets with co-workers in the back after hours. They talk in whispers, they measure the risk, they share the small money they have. One of them says, "We can strike." One says, "We can go to the press." One says, "We can find help." The idea passes between them like an ember. For a moment there is light, but it is dangerous light. The clock ticks. The camera of fate keeps rolling. The city watches, the internet votes, the landlord writes another note. The owner makes a final call and his voice is like a paper guillotine. The woman breathes. She is tired, she is scared, she is angry. The choice sits in the room like a challenge. Will she fold and disappear into the small dark that the men of power keep for others, or will she use this fractured fame to build something that lasts? The moment stretches, it is heavy, it is tense. The chapter ends on that stretch. The air feels like thunder. The lesson presses close and sharp. Dignity cannot be lent by strangers and it cannot be revoked by newspapers. Respect is not a favor to be granted to some and withheld from others. It is a right. It is the small, stubborn light people carry when the world asks them to shrink. The question remains, will the light be enough? The night is thin and quiet, like a held breath. She walks back through the door and the lights are low. The staff moves slow. Fatigue sits on their shoulders like a coat. Her phone buzzes. A notification flashes. Auction tonight. She opens an email. The owner has sent the sale list. The words on the screen are small and cold. For a second nobody moves. The chef's hand falls from the spoon. The manager's face goes blank, then tight. This is the moment the story bends. People had been saying the revolution would never come. They had been saying power never breaks. They were wrong about the sound of one life when it decides not to yield. She stands there in the half-light, and the memory of the CEO's voice rides the silence in her head. "You don't belong here." It used to be an echo that cut. Now it is the spark that lights a plan. They think she is simple. They think she is ordinary. They do not know the small maps she has kept hidden in pockets and inside a shoebox under a bed. Flashback comes like a quick film cut. Loans, small savings saved in a jar. A side business run at dawn. The first deposit she ever made for a plan came from one hard choice. She sold her mother's necklace. The necklace had been a thread that held the family together. She wrapped it in tissue at dawn and handed it away. The money went into a bank slip with shaking hands. She remembers her mother's eyes. She remembers a promise, build something that cannot be taken by a smirk. That memory is not regret. It is fuel. Another ping, a text. Investor ready. She taps it. There is a name attached to the number she never thought would ring back. He had been a regular once. He sat at the corner table and ate the cinnamon roll she made. He had watched her carry whole trays like a quiet knight. He had seen her dignity when the room tried to steal it. Years later, he is a small-time investor now, a black entrepreneur who learned to plant seeds where people said nothing could grow. He calls. In a voice that sounds like a hand reaching across a table, he says, "Let's buy it tonight." The idea is fierce and sudden. It feels like breaking ice. They move fast. There is a montage that happens in the dim of the kitchen and the cramped of small cars. Phone calls that burn minutes, video chats with signatures, bank transfers whose progress bars race like small miracles, a lawyer who says, "You need to bid now," and a transfer confirmation that vibrates like a heartbeat. Midnight presses its face to the window. The auction begins. The gavel comes down like thunder. The sound is a stamp. A winner is declared. The name on the lot belongs to them. For once the balance tilts. The CEO hears it before the rest of the city. His smirk that always stood on his face like a carved thing falters. He is used to ruling weather. He is not used to doors being taken from under him. Suddenly the board of the restaurant is changing hands. The sign that once told everyone who belonged there begins to look different in photos. The power flips in a way that feels like a small, honest miracle. She holds the key in her hands. The coffee stain on her palm, the one that once felt like a brand of shame, now catches the light like a medal. People gather when the news spreads. A crowd assembles at the door. They clap at first softly, then louder. The sound is not for revenge. It is not for the fall of a man. It is for a thing far older and kinder, the right to sit at a table without being told to move. The CEO walks in as the crowd moves. His big suit feels smaller now. The arrogance that carried him like armor hits a wall it cannot pass. People murmur the phrase he used on her. The sound of it bounces back at him from the mouths of those he thought small. He looks at the face of the woman he tried to make small, and for a moment he sees himself in a mirror that does not flatter. There is no gloating in how she stands. She does not raise a fist. She does not shout orders. She moves through the room with a calm that has been carved by harshness and kept steady by hope. She calls her staff to the main table. She says, in a voice steady and clear, "Ye ab hamri jagga hai." The English fits too. This is our place now. Tears come to their eyes. Pride makes their chests big. They do not applaud for vengeance. They applaud because a small, stubborn truth has been proved. Dignity can be turned into action. She walks the floor. She touches the counter. She touches the oven. Her fingertips trace the things that have been part of her life. Hands that scrubbed, hands that mixed, hands that served, all of them now belong to the story of ownership. The investor, once a quiet man in a corner, stands and says nothing because words would not make this truer than it already is. The camera of the crowd wonders where the CEO will go. He makes a face like a man looking for a shadow to hide in. But there is no hiding from the fact that the names on the lease changed tonight. There is no hiding from the sound of the gavel still echoing in their ears. Here is the twist the world does not expect. This victory is not a stage for revenge. She knows that breaking a man's pride will not bring back nights of unpaid bills. She knows anger will not refill a jar of savings. What she wants is simpler and bigger, to make a place where people are not told their place by the size of someone's bank account. She wants a table where dignity is the price of admission, not money. She turns to her team and says, "We will run it like we lived it, with work, with fairness, with respect." They nod. They understand the weight of the words. The crowd thins into the night, but the light inside the restaurant stays lit. Neighbors come by with pies and kind hands. The regular who stopped coming comes back and sits near the window. He tastes the cinnamon roll and the flavor is the same. Nothing magic has changed the recipe, only who holds the key now. The CEO steps outside. He looks at the sign, at the people, at the woman who refused to step back. For a moment a lesson crosses his face like a weather change. He will carry that look with him. It will remind him of an evening the world told him no. The scene cuts to the woman cleaning a table with movements that are not small anymore. She smiles, not because she beat a man, but because she won back a dignity that had been priced out of reach. The last image is of her hands. The stain on her palm is faint now. It shines in the low light like a memory turned into a medal. The movement of her hand is slow and sure. The camera pulls back and the storyteller says lightly, "For the ones listening in the dark, dignity does not need a crown to be true. You do not earn a right by begging. You hold it by holding on." The city will whisper about that night for years. Some will say the billionaire lost. Others will say the woman was lucky. The truth will be quieter and truer. A system has a weak seam. A seam can be opened by courage and patience and by people who save not for themselves, but for the moment they will need to stand. The chapter ends not with a shout, but with the quiet, wide breath of relief. The lesson sits with the audience like warm bread. Respect is not a gift. It is a right. Keep it, give it, guard it. The morning comes soft, like a promise you don't expect but are glad to keep. The new sign hangs above the door, simple, bold, the kind of name that does not shout but holds the street like a steady hand. People pause and look up without knowing why. Inside, the staff stand before the counter. Same aprons, same hands, new light on their faces. The fear has not vanished, but it has been thinned by something else, a small, steady hope. The chef runs his fingers along the counter as if checking the pulse of the place. The manager breathes in and can't help but let a small smile out. Word travels fast. The CEO steps out of his glass building into a halo of cameras and bright bulbs. Reporters press him with the same sharp questions they always ask. "Why sell?" they say, and he answers with a voice that is thin and polished. He speaks like a man reading a line he has practiced. Pride sits on him, but it is dented now. He looks smaller when the microphones are heavy. Maybe for the first time his pride feels like a thing he must carry alone. The city watches. The papers print the headlines, but the real moment waits in a room where two people will finally meet face to face. They call it a private meeting, but the air around it is loud. For a long time, there is only silence when they sit across from each other. The space between them holds months of small things. The coffee stain, the fork that dropped, the whisper in the room. She looks at him, and for a heartbeat, they are only two people who have lived inside the same story. She remembers the night he said the words that echoed in her like a cold wind, "You don't belong here." She remembers the way the room turned and watched. She remembers the slow collection of small cruelties that built a wall around her life. He looks older in that quiet. Guilt is a strange thing on a man who once taught others how to kneel. He shifts in his chair. He had thought that money could solve everything. He is learning now that money buys many things, but it taxes the heart in ways he never counted. Her voice breaks the hush like a bell. "You told me I didn't belong," she says. The line lands, simple and true. His face betrays a complicated motion, surprise, then a thin regret, then a small, real understanding that corners his eyes in a way that has nothing to do with business. He does not apologize perfectly. He does not make grand promises. Instead, he does something harder. He listens. For a moment, the world outside is only the two of them, and the cameras clicking feel far away. He says, "Thank you," awkward and small, as if the words are not enough, but they are the only ones he knows to give. In that tiny exchange, something changes inside him. It is not fireworks. It is a hush like rain beginning after a long drought. The moment is not about showing him down. It is about both of them seeing what power looks like when it has no kindness. She does not shout. She does not seek revenge. Her victory has not turned her into someone who revels in another's fall. She looks toward the future. The restaurant will be more than a place to eat now. They make a plan that morning, a plan with simple bones. The new owners agree to make the place a hub for the neighborhood. Free meals for those who need them, a table where children can come and learn, a small training program for young black youth who have the weight of the world on their shoulders, but no one to teach them how to lift it. Scholarships are sketched out over coffee and legal papers. The investor who believed in her stands quietly at the back watching seeds he planted grow into trees. She puts up a small plaque, the kind you do not need to shout about. It is for her mother. It reads in letters simple and clear, "Respect before profit." The plaque hangs on the bakery wall that they keep as part of the restaurant, a memory of where hunger met hope. They turn a room into a classroom, a shelf into a pantry, a counter into a stage for young voices. People come, neighbors bring casseroles and stories, volunteers sign up. The regular who stopped coming returns and sits by the window. He eats a cinnamon roll and his eyes are wet. He had not known courage until he tasted it in the woman who would not bend. The CEO walks through the door one afternoon. He is different now, not because the gavel changed him, but because he has seen what it costs to think only in ledgers. He watches children learning to read menus and young cooks learning to fold dough. He watches people reach across the counter and touch hands that used to only hold plates. He stands there like a man seeing a painting he helped ruin and now watches others restore. He comes up to her and says very quietly, "I was wrong." She nods. She accepts the words without turning them into triumph. There is no big speech. There is only a shared look that carries the weight of many small lessons. The restaurant becomes a place where dignity is served as plainly as bread. A montage plays out across the days, plates prepared with care, laughter that rings like bells, a classroom of kids learning to cook and count, a young person getting a scholarship letter and reading it as if it is light itself. Volunteers patch a chipped window and plant a small garden at the back. The kitchen hums with a rhythm that is not only profit-driven. The voiceover is soft and heavy. "Izat koi cheese nahi jo karid ka mil jare, wo jiti jati hai." Respect is not something you buy. It is earned day by day. The camera rests on her hands as she kneads dough the way her mother taught her. The camera rests on the plaque that reads "Respect before profit." The scene is not a photo of victory, but a quiet proof that small changes can reweave a neighborhood. The moral of the story is plain and not preachy. Power only matters when it is used to lift others. Money is a tool, not a crown. The city learns that balance is not just about dollars and cents. It is about humanity. In the weeks that follow, other places take notice, not because they want to topple men in suits, but because they begin to ask different questions at boardroom tables. What does it mean to serve the people? Who benefits? The debate changes tone. The woman watches young faces learn to be brave in a world that often tells them to be small. She teaches them how to hold a tray steady and how to hold a head high. She hangs a small photo of her mother near the register. People come in and see the plaque and read the line, and some of them cry. The CEO, in a quiet moment, signs a check for scholarship and leaves without making a show. He has learned that humility is not a thing to perform, it is a thing to practice. The final scene is simple. She closes the door on another busy night and looks back at the room glowing with small lights. She smiles, not big, not loud, but full. The kind of smile that says she kept a promise she made years ago in a small kitchen, selling a necklace so a dream could grow. The camera pulls back. The storyteller speaks for the ones who listened close to the end. Respect outlasts wealth. It does not bow to a suit or a smirk. It lives in the work we do for one another. The signboard outside catches the last light of the day and holds it like a secret, fade out on her smile. Title card: Respect is the currency that outlasts wealth.